Welcome back. This is your girl Zupa.
And your girl Tata.
And we are the Follow Week podcast.
That wasn't so cheesy, but it's okay. We allowed to be cheesy sometimes. And for today's episode, we're blessed with two amazing individuals that any introduction I do will not do them justice. But just know that we have a fashionista all the way in from the US of A who's going to be giving us a little insight into what she has coming. Zula, I know I said Zulaika, I'm sorry, aka Zula. This is what we're going to call her. And then we have none other than the creative director and creative consultant, Nkosi.
Thank you for having me.
Who both will be sharing a lot of the stuff that they've been working on, who they are, and what they do.
Yes. So you guys, can you introduce yourselves? So we can start with you, Kosi.
I'm a digital creator and consultant. I do have a media entity called Montreal Got Style, in which we cover urban lifestyle, different things around the culture in the city and outside of the city as well. And I have an agency where I produce content and digital advertising for clients who goes from like public figures to brands and different entities around the city.
And Zula, who are you?
I'm a fashion designer, specifically a slow fashion designer. I've been doing this for a couple of years now. I am working for the consumer that wants ethical, sustainable shopping. We are currently working on a new project, hoping to get out a new line or a new design in the fall of this year. And yeah, that's what I've been up to. And I recently moved to the US of A.
You like that one, eh?
And yeah, things are going good. Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, thank you for being here, guys. Thank you for accepting our invite.
Blessing us with your presence.
Exactly. So the topic of today is Black entrepreneurship, because y'all are Black, and we're Black
Shit,
too.
I hadn't noticed.
The card, she pulled it.
Yeah, and we talk about Black shit. So yeah, it's a Black entrepreneurship just because with everything that's happened ever since the Black Lives Matter movement, we have seen like a shift of like a lot of Black entrepreneurship coming into place, and so we just want to kind of like have the feel, talk to Black entrepreneurs and see what your experiences are, like what are the struggles, or what you can tell people who are starting out. And the fact that you guys is totally different, you know, you are more of a creative director and you're a fashion designer, which are also non-traditional like avenues to be in business. So we found that interesting, as well as the fact that Black people, there's a lack of representation in those fields for Black people. So that's why the topic we felt was relevant. As well as we are also like Black entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So
She's like
we are
definitely we are.
like, so it's just kind of like having a conversation with other people who are also doing the same thing as we're doing, to see if we have similar experiences, what we can share with each other and the public, people who are listening to us. So yeah, and I was looking into it. I'm like, you know, when we have these topics, it's like, what's the relevance? Why are we talking about this? I was looking it up, and apparently, although 1.2 million Canadians identify as Black, which represents in total 3.5% of the population, a Black Canadian survey that was recently done found that about 2,000 Black-owned businesses of significant scale. So to be honest, I don't know what we're comparing it to in terms of like non-Black entrepreneurs. The fact that in Canada, you know, there's Black, there's visible minorities, like the categories of like
usually
identity
research
are
when
very
it comes to the Black community is so lacking.
complex.
Yeah.
So, but with these numbers, we just want to like understand where we're at and where we're going as Black entrepreneurs.
Yeah, perfect. So with that being said, I'll let Zula have the floor. Just give us a little snapshot of you, right? Who you are, what you do, who you do it for, and why you do it.
So as I said, I'm a designer. So I literally do the whole process of sketching the design, then creating the pattern, and then eventually doing my samples. So, and I feel like that's very, like, it's a hard process, but an authentic process to me as a designer, because I want things to be done in contrast to what fashion is as an industry, which is very fast, and you can like ship your designs to China and then get them back, like let's say a month later, and you have like a bulk of things, and that's what I'm trying to step away from. We also do upcycled fashion, which is we're gonna take a piece and we're gonna reuse either the fabric itself, so the material that we're using is sourced locally. So, and that in itself is very hard, trying to upkeep a sustainable line while I'm also in this industry that is kind of outcasting Black designers. So I'm like niched, like I'm double niched basically. But with that being said, like I'm passionate about what I'm doing, and I feel like whomever that I'm targeting is someone that relates to being eco-friendly and advancing fashion in a way where it's relatable to like a better world. I know that's cheesy, but
No, but it's true.
You're changing the world through fashion.
hey, one step at a time.
One item at a time.
Superheroes don't wear capes all the time, you know?
And just to add on to that, what was the reason behind you getting into the whole slow fashion industry?
Honestly, I've always loved fashion, and growing up, like I would see my grandmother, like I would come with a piece of pants, and I'm like, oh, they don't fit anymore, and then she would like change them up to fit me in a different way, where it's like, oh, I'm still able to wear these pants that didn't fit me, but now are fitting me in a different way, where it's also aligned with whatever trend that is. And with that, like, I'm like, oh my God, I want to do this. So first of all, yes, it was my grandma that introduced me to fashion as I know it. And from there, I was like, I want to be able to create and change things from their initial composition to something different or something more relatable to me and whatnot. So even if I am a fashion designer and I'm going to do the whole process of pattern, like one of my core passions is like taking things from a thrift shop and then like switching them around.
It?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
super chic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing.
No worries.
Nkosi.
Yes.
Who are you? What you do, why you do it, and who you do it for?
I feel like when it comes to what I do, it's pretty much divided in like 3 different like aspects. It would be the advertising stuff, the business stuff that I do for others, my personal creations, which is like short films, documentaries, and different things. And after that is the consulting stuff. So it's me giving out ideas to other people as well. And those 3 things in my life, now that I'm, a little bit older and like more positioned in my career, I kind of understand like a little bit more of why I'm doing them. And today I feel like it's just me answering to my 17-year-old self. Because like for the advertising stuff, I remember, you go like on whatever station. Me, I grew up in the East End, so it would be Honoré Beaugrand or Henri Bourassa.
Okay.
And you just casually walk by, but like I like to observe things, right? And I would look at an ad from Tiki Ming, and at 17, you don't know that it's probably owned by a Quebecer. You just feel like, oh, it's Asian culture, pushed to your face, and they got the money to put it up there. But the thinking is not like, why is it there? You understand why? Because they want to sell that to people. I get that. But to me, it was more like, okay, but why is it not like a Haitian restaurant doing it? And I feel like for the past like 10 years, it was just me trying to answering that. And once I figured, it's like, oh, they don't want to invest maybe. or they don't understand like, yo, those things take like professional photo shoots to execute. You need the idea to make sure that it connects with people as they walk by, because you have a lot of people crossing that stuff every day. It might not stop for it. You have all those different elements that you have to take accountability for, and then you implement them, if it works or not for your client, and then you're able to grow this thing to somewhere else. Because we know like some of those businesses, like it's the mom and pops vibe, it's this and that, the third, but they have the potential to be somewhere else. It's only up to us to do things differently to make it happen. So that was one thing. When it comes to what I create, I think even though like I grew up in the East End as a Francophone mostly, I feel like I was very Americanized. And I always like the show business element of what they got going on. Maybe they sometimes like, especially the 90s stuff we grew up on.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure they didn't have like the Bentley money, but they sold it to us.
Yeah.
Tu comprends ce que je veux dire?
Fact.
And over here, I feel like even though you would do that, you would know like he ain't got it like that. Tu comprends ce que je veux dire? So it's tough for us to believe in that. But the problem is like in show business, entertainment and whatnot, it's all about that. Selling a dream, selling an image. So for me, it was always like, but why we don't have like a Jay-Z? That was a question I would ask myself. Why we don't have a Rockefeller, a this and that, the third. So I feel like me covering culture and doing stuff on my media platform was a way to respond to that. Because I would get to interview rappers and people would ask them like the regular questions, like, what inspired you when you made that song? But me, I'd be like, okay, but in that specific song, you're talking about criminality, da 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 da. Like, can you tell me like what made that person who talks easily about things that can send you to jail and shit? Tu comprends? So I was always trying to like bring this thing where we would document this thing, put it on Front Street, culturally speaking. We will not sugarcoat anything, because like it over here is like very PC, because like they, sponsoring dollars and all that good stuff. Like they won't put their Canada logo or Quebec logo over some shit where people are just cursing and whatever. Yeah. So once again, but you have to, have those discussions with those instances to know that. So because I was always asking myself like, okay, but why we don't have those kind of movies, those kind of vibe, those kind of cultural elements in what we produce over here? And once I figured out that, okay, because it's the money they're rolling out, they don't want to put stuff that may or may not shock people culturally and whatnot, then I kind of figured like, okay, you know what? Let me own my means of production and just do it myself then. And just have people rolling around that would like to do it the same way I want to do it. Because some people, like, they want to create, but they're scared of like losing that stream of revenue. And I respect it. I get it. But like, it's not a compromise that I'm willing to do artistically speaking. But I understand though, get your money. Tu comprends, man? That was one. And on the third, I feel like at some point I kind of understood like the only way for me to grow as an entity would be to be able to work with other people. But I always wondered like in which capacity I would be able to do so. But something that I noticed over time is that people will often like tap me on the shoulder to just like ask me advice or ask me about my opinions about stuff and whatever. So I would feel like, oh, you know what? Like maybe like in whatever context, like it could be, what should I wear? How to design my website? What do you think about this campaign visually? And different aspects of things. So I figured that, oh, you know what? Maybe one, I'm able to sell my ideas for sure, and also like bring in value to other creatives that are able to just kill it on their own. So by then, like with the ripple effect, it all comes back. It becomes like this cycle where I bounce off of you, you bounce off of me. We build this ecosystem together, and then everything pretty much like grows from there. So that would be that. But that was just me feeling like, okay, but at 17, I was the type of kid I would be in LaSalle. I would be in like deep corners in Laval. I would take my bus. Comme je prenais mon bus for real. And I would go to those places and I would create like a whole like new me. Like sometimes I would go to DG and places like that and just act like a fucking tourist all day just to learn English and just be able to, like interact with other people. And then like they would tell me like, oh shit, I didn't know like people from the East were that cool. And me, I'm like, yeah, I didn't know that people from the West were that cool. So like that's the next question. Like how can we kind of just
Bridge.
like bridge
Yeah.
those things together. So then I figured like, all right, I'm gonna give you value first. I don't care if you give it back to me or not, but at least you see me making an effort. And if you do it for the next guy, I did my part. That's how I look at it.
Definitely.
And it's did you have another question?
I'll let you go first.
Okay. It's interesting. While I was hearing you speak, I was thinking of this article. By the way, some people know, but Zula is my sister, so she was here when I was reading this article. It's an article by Tracy McMillan, and it's called "The Hustle Economy."
Okay.
And what you were saying made me think of it because, you know, the concept of hustle has shifted throughout the last like 30
Decade.
years.
Yeah, especially with technology.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what they were referring to, how back in the day, the concept of hustle was about making money that was not included in the general economy.
Yeah.
So anything that you were doing and making money, making an income that was not included in the general economy was hustle, drugs, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But now the concept of hustle has shifted because nowadays people do it because now
It got gentrified. Let's
be honest.
Yeah.
it shifted in different ways.
Yeah.
There's some negativity to it, and there's some positivity.
Yeah.
In the sense, like with the technology, which is what she is explaining in the article, it kind of like even the playing field,
That I
where
agree.
in a positive way, it kind of shifted the economy away from politics and kind of brought
Put
it
it in the hands of the people.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
in that sense, we're able to see all these types of new ways to hustle.
New ways to make money, new like
Exactly.
even new spaces that people are creating. You know
Exactly,
what I mean?
Exactly. And the way I'm hearing him speak,
Yeah.
he's been hustling his
Yeah.
whole,
Yeah.
and his hustle has grown and turned
Developed
into
and
this
evolved.
new, and
Yeah.
evolved into this new thing where you kind of create your own space, you're in your own lane, and it's only true to you. Like
Yeah.
nobody else can do it but Nkosi.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
nobody can do his hustle.
Totally knocked out the middleman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's crazy because when you were talking, I was trying to figure out how I was gonna kind of
Yeah, and it
segue
literally made me think of that because, you did touch on the fact that like it feels like it's more. I feel the hustle mentality is more like a U.S. thing, and I feel like here it's not as like welcomed. So and I see that. I completely understand that, especially now that I live in the U.S. Like the Black owned businesses that are there are just
flourishing.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They're
Yeah.
booming,
Yeah.
and even like in these past 2 years, the numbers show that 38% of Black-owned business have risen, and because of the whole George Floyd and whatnot,
yeah.
unfortunately, they have trickled as well. Like now that we're getting into a new era where it's like, it was basically not based on the right intentionalities. So it's not like, even though it was like a win for the Black people in the United States, and obviously the numbers are more present,
Positive,
compared to like what we see here in Canada. Like let's say the stats that you were showing, it's like it's ambiguous.
we don't know if it's a
There's
positive
no
thing or
research.
not.
It's all
Yeah.
disaggregated.
Yeah,
and everything like that.
exactly.
But like both of you guys are touching on the same things in different spectrums, right?
Yeah.
What do you, and this is both of you guys can answer, what do you believe is making that difference? Why the Black community in the United States has more of that hustle mentality, knowing that there's, from what we see in the media and everything, there's so many stumbling blocks in the way of Black Americans, right?
Yeah.
But there's still, when it comes to entrepreneurship, it appears, and it seems rightfully so, that they're excelling at an accelerated rate compared to their Black Canadian counterparts, right? So given the fact that, we know that systemic racism is an issue that impacts us in all facets of our lives. And it's also more so in the States compared to here, even though, we still experience it here as well. But yet the Black community in the States, they still have adopted that mentality, and that mentality has allowed them to become millionaires. That mentality has allowed them to start businesses that flourish without end, right? So as you're talking about what we're seeing here in Canada and how there's something that's not connecting with that, trying to adopt that mentality that they have over there. And it was successful for you adopting that mentality that allowed you to create your own space and everything. What do you guys feel is lacking here with Black Canadians that we're not getting the same type of end result? We're not getting the same outcome as those Black Americans in the States.
You want to go?
Should I go first? Okay. What I believe is a question of the multicultural that is here. I feel like given that we're a lot of different Black people, I feel like we're not as like unified. What I believe over there is that they all consider themselves Black Americans. So at the end of the day, they're gonna work with the next Black person. They're gonna be involved with each other. Like even my husband, he owned his own trucking company, and most of the employees are Black. So, and I've seen that a lot. Like even in these Black shops that I'm telling you about, the people that are around, they're Black. So I feel like even though I feel the media is trying to show like, oh, Black people are gonna go high and they're not gonna like, open doors for other Black people. That is not true. I feel like that's like a false narrative.
It's more a Montreal thing. Crabs in a bucket. That's what we see here. No lie.
So, from what I see, from what I've experienced in North Carolina, I see that a lot of Black people are encouraging other Black people. So, like, that's my thought process on that.
I get that. Well, first, the distinction for me would be, because the thing about slavery over there, I feel like even though it was a bad thing, it also made them be a part of America's fabric as a whole. For us, like our relationship, like you would probably never wake up one day and say, hey, I'm a Quebecer. And if you do, in the back of your mind, you kind of know that somebody will laugh you out the room. But for them, when they tell you I'm American, they mean that shit.
Yes.
They'll pump their chest like King Kong if they have to, but they'll stand on it. So that's one. So that means they're already a part of the fabric. They some of them may or may not have opportunities coming out of that or connections or whatever, right? And then I feel like because of that, it was easier for them to kind of sell their culture a little bit more. Because for us, it's tough because we're trying to keep it like inside as much as we can, but we don't have the resources.
It's like a lack of identity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So by then you have like those mom and pops boutiques and whatnot. That works or may not, depending on like what's their plan behind it. But like there's no funding, there's all of that good stuff. And yes, the community is going to help them like at least sustain. But never, there's a ceiling to that, basically. And also, like, I'm 31 years old today, and I think, like, the fact that to duplicate something, you have to either understand the blueprint before or pick up some things from other people who did it before you.
Yeah.
In 31 years in my life, I've met people who reach a certain status, whether it's millionaires and whatnot, only when I was, like, 28, 29. And that's because I completely shifted who I associated with. And I had a media company that gave me access to those people. But regular me, living in Montreal North, I would have never met those kind of people in a different scenario. So if you can't grasp it or understand like how those people think, move, and behave, blah, 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 objectively speaking, how can you really get there?
Reach there, yeah.
And then, like that hustle mentality we were talking about, that also has a different ceiling as well. Because, like, you can hustle. That becomes your time, energy, and different things like that. If you're smart enough, you understand that you got to separate your time from your revenue stream. So by then you make money and you sleep, and then you're able to optimize that thing, and then it becomes something else. But not all of us are able to do that. Yeah. You got to find your product. You got to have the resources to find your product, all that good stuff. But the thing about the hustle mentality, once again, is like it's always like I make a buck, dumping back, and then you just rinse and repeat. Yeah. But what if you built a brand instead? What if you, because brands, what it is it's someone identifying with a product, an entity, and they want to support that thing. And then, with certain brands like Apple and whatnot, it becomes a cult. It becomes something that those people want to engage with, support for a long time. Because the minute you have that kind of customer in your base, that's a lifetime customer versus somebody you're selling something to. Because that's easy, technically. To comprendre, you have a product, you want to sell it to a mass of people. If you're lucky enough, you're going to sell it to like a bunch of people, and then it'll make you some money. But like, do it another time though. Do it a second, a third, a fourth time. That's when it becomes tricky. But when you turn them into like fans of your quote unquote brand, they follow you for the rest of your career. Who knows? Tu comprends? That's why I've been shifting my stuff to like just doing that, like branding, like making sure that it speaks to a specific group. So then whenever I put something else, they feel like I'm actually speaking to them and they relate, because I'm nitpicking like people that I really want to fuck with my shit. So it's a choice. I respect people who hustle because I'm still hustling anyway. But I understand that there's going to be a ceiling to that for sure. At some point or another, there's going to be a ceiling. If you want to like a proper example, you take a Jay-Z, a Dame Dash. Jay-Z focuses on like reinvesting on brands that are already established, so they did the groundwork for him. It's even better. So he just puts his face next to Ace of Spades, next to this and that, the third, and then at some point or another, it's like, all right, let me sell my shares. Here you go. Like I made a Billy this year, just like that. Or you take someone like Dame Dash, which I respect a lot. He's gonna do multiple projects throughout the year. He's gonna do different things, and then if he's lucky enough, he's gonna be able to sell it. But that's gonna be like money that he flips right now, puts it back in the business, and then it has to grow over the years for sure. But what about the brand? What about something that people can actually like look at and associate with? I think he's doing it better now, but it took him so much time because he was just focusing on hustling the whole time. And, you know, he afforded himself a great lifestyle through that. But at the same time, nothing stood the test of time. Instead, like, we always take him back to the first brand he actually created, which is Rockefeller. Whenever he pops up in interviews, they don't talk about his movies. They don't talk about him trying to do
Def Jam or
trying to do different things. They just hear like, oh, yo, what about Rockefeller? What about Def Jam? What about those days? Because that's when they had an emotional connection with one of his ideas. So once you can't recreate that, you're missing the boat, I think.
Well, what I'm hearing a lot is about like one, unity and identity, right? Mentality also, right? And sacrifice. You know what I mean? So those three things, are you guys really saying that Black Canadians, if they unify and stop being so divisive, if they adopt a different mentality, and if they really incorporate sacrifice into their work ethics, that we will be able to reach the same type of pinnacle or surpass it than our counterparts in the America?
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like you could already see that through your friends. Like, I feel like if you have a group of friends that are Black and you're introducing your brand, like I did with 1991, you could already see how supportive they're going to be compared to a stranger on the street. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And one thing that I do think that has an impact, though, is the numbers. There's a lot more Black people in the United States. There's just a larger population as well. That is something to take into account. We're not a lot of Black people here in Canada compared to the States. Also, I wanted to touch on the fact that, you know, right now, it was actually in the article, right now, because of technology and the leveling of the playing field in terms of economy and entrepreneurship, we are at an advantage. Like racism and systemic racism has less of an impact on a person who can be creative, and there's a market for creativity. You understand? So, for example, just as you and I, it's a perfect example for that. Like, we are creating our own, basically, avenue.
Yeah.
If you see what we've done with Fall Awake, when we started doing the podcast, and I was like, yo, this could be big. We could
it's a movement.
Yeah, you were like, it's a movement. I'm like, I've been trying to see how we can make money with it since the first episode. I'm like, yo, we have to turn this podcast into workshops. And then people actually want to buy these workshops. And then they're paying us for these workshops. And then we take a small portion of this workshop to fund our podcast. And then it just keeps going. And I don't know anybody else who's doing podcasts and doing workshops. I have
Facilitating workshops for corporate and community organizations.
Yeah. And that's a dope thing. Like sometimes, when you're doing something, you don't see what you're doing.
Yeah.
But then I sit back and I'm like, we did this.
It's like we're interventionists, bitch.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's really Tamara and I, when we work on a project for a workshop, it's always like, yeah, okay, now we're working, we're working, and then after when it's done, we're like, yo, we just did that.
Just did that.
No, for sure. Congrats.
Yeah, no, thank
definitely.
you. But mentality is a big thing. Definitely. And something else that we're going to segue into is this whole scarcity mentality that the Black Canadian community often has, or poverty mindset, if you want to say. And I don't know who wants to speak on that, but a lot of people say that, that's what's been creating a ceiling for us. Also, we know, as she said, the systems that are in place, the discourses that have been perpetuated so that we are automatically at a disadvantage. But with everything that we've been seeing, it's like, we can excel. Our community has been so resilient, even though I don't like using that word because sometimes resilience can be maladaptive, but we have been so resilient in a facet of ways, right? That our work ethic and our mindset, ultimately can also be a crutch as much as it could multiply our success, right? And what I'm seeing a lot, is that a lot of Black Canadians feel like, oh, they don't have enough money to do their business. They can't do that. They can't be an entrepreneur because money, money, money. Zupa and I, we also have full-time jobs, right? And I have a plethora of part-time jobs, but we're also in the entrepreneurial sphere, right? So we're using our 9-to-5 money to fund our dreams, ultimately. You know what I mean? For you, I know you're full-fledged. You guys are pretty much more full-fledged into your entrepreneurial realms, right? But with regards to that poverty mentality, that scarcity mentality, have you guys experienced that within your own businesses, or can you speak on it with regards to what you see in the Black community here in Montreal?
I'll let you take the floor.
I don't know. Like me personally, it's not something, because I was lucky enough that I saw my uncle put himself in the 1% conversation at some point or another in his life. He was somebody I looked up to, even though I never knew how, why, or whatever. Just the fact that I could see him strive to do something, it allowed me to put in my brain that it was possible. Me though, as I grew up, especially in more difficult neighborhoods in the east end of Montreal, I could see different mentalities and different things. I have a lot of friends who are in the street right now. Either jail, dead, all that good stuff, right? We know how it goes. But besides that, something that I noticed over time is there's certain foundations that need to be implemented before we can even have those conversations, unfortunately. Because we could look at whatever day, and you know who I mean by day, got going on and feel like, oh my God, why isn't it us? But a lot of it, strangely enough, is based on corruption, street money, laundering, and a lot of that. So I don't want, and that's oftentimes what I hate about those discussions. It leaves out a whole section of the Black experience, which is the street. The street plays a huge part of it, but we don't feel it here because here's the thing: in the United States, they understand those transitional moments where a lot of hip hop as a whole, and since hip hop became people in hip hop became pretty much the representation for Black excellence somehow, some way, unfortunately, but it is what it is. But a lot of those guys were funded by street dudes that just laundered their money in a different business and were able to be legitimized and grow. But me, when I have those conversations, I want the bigger picture or nothing. That's that's just how I roll. I want to tell the same way I want to tell a mom and pop, hey, build your presence online, do this, do that. Just use your audience as much as you can. All you need is 100 people that fuck with you to get there. Cool. I want to talk to the street guy and tell him yo, bro, you got 20,000. You don't know what to do with it. Literally. You're buying chains and J's, my G. What about investing in that person, legitimize your stuff, blah, blah, blah. It's whack because I know there's going to be repercussions or whatnot, but they pull it off every single day. They have those discussions with politicians with brown envelopes and whatnot.
Yes.
Why? Yeah, let's just play the game too. You know, because, like, street money is very high right now. I can tell you that much. Like, I see guys with customized chains every day. I see, like, things have shifted when it comes to that aspect of things. And half the time, we know how it ends.
Yep.
But if we show them, like, a different path.
Before they get to that end.
Yeah, they transition. They see how it's going on. And we'll have a Puff Daddy. We'll have a Jay-Z. We'll have a this and that, the third. And by then, it's like it's a bigger influx of everything. Because, like, we're all starting from scratch when it comes to business over here. Technically, some of us are, I wouldn't say lucky, we do work and all that good stuff, but at the same time, it's like those breakthroughs, like, it's either you get it or you don't. I'm pretty sure we all remember.
Hit or miss.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we all remember where we were in 2008, like in 2008 when like Facebook just came out. Some people just saw it as, oh shit, I'm just connected with my friends. I was looking at this shit like, yo, I could be in fucking Montreal and somebody in Boston could know who I am. Oh man, look, I'm about to pimp this shit. That's how I looked at it. Tu comprends? But it's like, me, it's that, you, it's something else.
Yeah,
Tu comprends
it's the
ce que je veux
mentality
dire?
thing.
So by the time like 2012 rolled out, I was already doing videos because I was in the nightlife business. So I was doing videos for my shit. I was doing like harassing people by DM and all that good shit. Tu comprends? So by the time like 2014-ish came out with like Instagram, that was more like personal, artsy, more reach even. I was like, oh, I already know what to do. Like, I've been doing this for 4 years anyway. So let me just apply what I knew from this platform to this. And that's where it really mattered to me because Instagram was new. The reach was through the roof. And I came out swinging.
Yeah.
And I took advantage of that. Now, like, I'm at this age and phase in my life where now I'm out of touch. And it's fine because I've made my bones and I've made an impact. Now I have a brand. But, like, if I was just a guy starting out, I'm seeing this, like, TikTok thing. I'm like, oh, jumping on it. Jump. It's new. People are reacting to it. It's a new audience. It's a new way of doing things. I would jump on it. Today, I have the luxury of not even feeling like, yo, I should just jump on that wave. But because I've made, like, the work before. So it really depends on.
You've been in the trenches. So
That's
it's
the
like,
thing.
Yeah.
So, like, the unity stuff, I agree. Because, like, we still have debates of, like, Francophones versus Anglophones in 2022.
The French side and English side is still not united. Still, we have a long way to go.
That's the thing. DG versus this hood,
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, of course. But there's some people who are doing the work. Like, I have some guys in DG. They have some guys in the East End as well. So, like, those things don't really matter to me anymore. Because I'm like, if we're having that conversations, we're not like working in the same frequency anyway, so I don't need to talk to you. So it's cool. So yeah, I think it's that for me personally.
He's preaching.
I know. Zula, you want to add to that?
I believe that everything that he's saying is a matter of fact, like, especially when he touched on the fact that representation is important. And especially in my field, like, I feel like growing up, I didn't really have representation in, like, what it is that I'm doing right now. So it's kind of like learning on the go. And I feel like when you are starting up here, you are going to use personal capital, as you said. And even venture capitals that are provided by banks, they're very scarce. They're not given to Black entrepreneurs as much. So it's a lot of, like, even though you don't want to hustle, you have to. That's what the platform is. So when they show, like, the Kylie Jenners, oh, a self-made billionaire girl, you had a whole platform that was, like, built for you. So in that sense, like, I feel like he's completely right. Like, at the end of the day, if we were here in Canada more supportive of one another, it's like, oh, I have a 10,000. Let me give it to you in terms of, like, your branding. I believe in it. And I have friends that have done that, like, where it's a $500, but I appreciate that, you know? My sister has done that for me. And it's like people believing in you, that, and you becoming, hopefully, the representation that someone else is gonna need to venture in that avenue that is, I believe, very scaring and very, like, seldom. Like, I believe that's the only way we can move forward, like, as a Black people.
Yeah.
And one thing that you did say that made me think of something is that one day we had a conversation when she was having doubts and saying like, you know, oh, am I going to be successful as a designer or not? And we're talking about success here, right? It's like, what is success? And I was telling my sister, like, depending on how much you invest in this brand and what you're getting back, like maybe the end goal, maybe the success is just being able to sew and do what you love.
Like success looks different to different people.
Yes, it's
you know
like
what I mean?
you really have to sit and think about what is success for you. And maybe being able to create a garment, it should be enough for you.
Yeah.
And you know, and that is what it is. And she really sat down and thought about it, and she's like, you're right. So, and ever since then, she hasn't like expressed doubt about wanting to work on her brand.
Yeah.
But you know, if she would have like just
Given
oh my
into
gosh,
that,
like into
The whole
that-
money thing.
the whole money thing, then you're like, then
Yeah.
And it's
you
the
can't do it.
comparison that he was talking about. Like at the end of the day, when you see your white counterparts and they're doing better and like they have all of this and you're like, oh my God, I feel like a fraud because I'm not at that level. I'm not at that level. I feel like that's where like the insecurities and like all these doubts like come and like freaking blind you. So yeah, I feel like I always have I have to do these mental check-ins with my sister, and like she reminds me, okay, girl, chill.
So that was perfect to slide into the imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
You guys know what that is? Is
Yeah.
that something that you have experienced in your, you know, in your route, on your journey?
But that's the thing. When you live on the internet, like it's either you create like this image and that you gotta live up to, and then when you go outside, you gotta deal with that, or you think you're not doing it, and then people reach out to you in a way that makes you feel like you created this character. For me, that was the second part, because like I wasn't trying to fake the funk as I came out. I always been honest about what was going on, but I started to get like milestones and different accolades. Like I had stuff like nominations at Gala Dynasty, stuff like that, right?
Not nominations, a Gala Dynasty.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You would, but here's the thing though, because yes, I would get that, but then I would go to those places. At first, I wouldn't say like that it got to my head, but listen, it was still something, and I would pop up there, dressed to the nines, feeling like I was the man, right? And then like somebody just looked, and that was like the best thing that could have happened to me at the time. Somebody looked me up like, oh, because he knew me, whatever. It's like, why you even dress up like that? Like, what's up? I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, don't you know like what's going on? You know what I mean? And also like at the door, even like I came through, and the person who was at the door didn't know who I was or the fact that I was nominated, and I had a ticket. No, I had no ticket. Matter of fact. So she's like, ticket, please. And then I'm like, and I was with somebody. So it's a bad look, let's be real. And I'm like, I'm in the back of my mind, I'm like, if I have to pull out that email, I ain't the one no more. Like, it's cool. Like, I get it. It's called. So I was joking around, like, I ain't got no ticket. She looked at me like, yo, if you ain't got no ticket, you ain't coming in. I was like, damn. And she's like, you want me to, she said, you want me to bring somebody out for you, like some organizers, whatever. I'm like, yeah, sure. Because, like, at this point, the joke is pretty much done, right? And the organizer looked me up like, you heard her. If you ain't got no ticket, you ain't coming in. Pulling out the email. Oh, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, oh, you know what? Like, if I put those things, like in the scale of what I give a fuck about, if I put those things high up there, I'm done. You know what I mean? Like validation, how people feel about you and stuff like recognition and those type of things. Like if it means something that much to me, I don't think I have longevity in this game, because you'll never be able to have like that outlook on people, like in general. Like you'll never be able to get like people to perceive you always as this person. But that's why me, like now, to make sure like I'm always balanced with those things, I'm making a conscious effort to just tell people like, hey, it looks like that, but this is what it is. And that's it. And when people be like, "Oh man, wish I was you," I'm like, "Yo, bro, I don't think you want that kind of thing." I'm telling you, I don't think, because this is it. This is the steps. This is A to Z. This is that. And people look at me like I'm a downer sometimes, but I'd rather tell you the truth than just like
candy coat it.
yeah,
You know what
that's
I mean?
the thing, you know.
Yeah.
And that's how I cope with it. But before, I felt like shit, like, because the thing is, like, I've sacrificed a lot to be in the position I'm in today. Like cutting ties with like a lot of different peoples in my background, like that I grew up with. So to them, they're looking at me as some kind of like local hero or some shit sometimes. And I'm the one who had to tell them like properly, like, yo, I'm just figuring it out just like you, bro.
Yeah.
I'm
Along
just
with the process.
that's exactly. I'm just in a field that makes it look exciting, because you know, with like social media, media invites and whatnot. But the thing is, like, those people who do that kind of shit, they'll never tell you that they got in for free. They'll never tell you that the fucking limo that they're in didn't pick them up at home. It picked them up at Berry-UQAM. And I could never, by the way. I could never. I said, "Oh, Berry-UQAM, nah. I'm taking my car, bro. It's cool. It's cool." They'll never tell you that. Tu comprends? They'll never tell you that the clothes they got are sent out for free. They'll never tell you none of
The
that.
ticket is still on.
You know,
That's
they're
the thing.
They're gonna bring it back the next
That's
day.
the thing. That's why I don't present myself as an influencer or whatnot. And what I like about what I do is, it's not me, the person who has the reach and influence and access. It's an entity. So I can separate myself, my persona, who I am from that. So yeah, you're dealing with Montreal Got Style, but not Nkosi the man, the person. So I can look at myself in the mirror and feel like, hey, this is who I am. This is what it is. Don't mix the two. Don't blend the two. Don't start feeling yourself like you've arrived. Stay grounded.
It's
Stay
a clear
grounded.
boundary.
Look at yourself in the mirror and
Yeah.
just remember, you know what I mean? Don't let your head get too big.
That's
you know
the
what I
thing,
mean?
yeah.
But like as Black entrepreneurs, knowing the impact that race has on the entrepreneurial realm, and it's clear that you guys have been able to find your own ways of navigating on that, and I'll let you elaborate on that a little bit more. But what is like your favorite part about being a Black entrepreneur in your specific fields?
I feel like it's kind of what I was saying. I believe that eventually I will be someone else's representation, and hopefully I'm creating a path for future generations to feel like this venture is not as scary or as like unattainable. So, which I felt a lot going into this. Even like, let's say, generational wealth plays a part in it, and even the mentality. Like, I'm from an immigrant family, and like when I was telling my mom, "Oh, I want to do fashion," she's like, "No, you can't do that." You know what I mean? So it's like that in itself, like you said, mindset. It really has to play a part, and I was very fortunate by the fact that I had people around me still believe in me. But one thing that I've realized in the fashion industry, especially, you have to be confident in what it is that you're doing, because it is a lot of hard work, and you are sacrificing a lot. So if you're not confident in what you're doing, then you're just like wasting all this energy. And it's crazy because I learned that like 3 weeks ago.
Hey, it doesn't matter. We learn every day. We're learning every day.
You know?
Can't stop learning. So that's your
yeah.
favorite aspect about being a
So-
Black entrepreneur.
My favorite part, honestly, is just the creative aspect of it. I love thinking about something and putting it on paper, or sometimes not putting it on paper, and just like working the fabric, working the design, working the patterns, and then it becomes what I had envisioned. That's the most satisfying, the most satisfying thing for me. Like, just being able to create something with my own hands, and like, yeah, I'm proud when it comes up exactly the way I
And
want
you
it.
manifest it in the natural.
Exactly.
That's power.
Yeah.
I swear.
I love it.
And you, Nkosi?
Me, my favorite thing about it is challenging, like, all this stuff that I took for granted in this industry or whatever.
Status quo.
Yeah, exactly. Because, like, to me, the fact that I became a quote-unquote official media entity, and I got, like, you know, some kind of letter that certifies this shit in my mom's apartment while tapping in front of a computer all day. To me, it's like, I was like, when I got the letter, I was like, oh, yeah? That's all it took? So to me, it's like challenging all those different things. So, like, am I a black entrepreneur or just an entrepreneur that just so happens to be black?
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, you know, it's words are very important in the realm we kind of live in. And I feel like one thing about us black people, man, that I have to salute all the time is like, we with so little, we're able to do like so many different things. I look at my mom with
Innovation.
Exactly. I look at my mom, who's a teacher today, but instead of, and I always use that example when it comes to challenging ideas, right? When she got me, she was on welfare, basically. And usually, I don't know the statistics or whatever, but I have a feeling that once you get accustomed to that way of doing stuff, maybe chances are you're going to stay on it.
Yeah, it's hard to break out.
It's hard to break out of it. And my mom, she didn't know if it was a possibility or whatnot, but she went to the welfare office, whatever, and she told them, like, look, simple as that. Y'all either going to pay for my studies or y'all have me on the roster forever. And they did. So my mom went on to study, teach, to be a teacher and whatnot, and she came out of it debt-free.
Props to her.
Debt-free just because of that. I don't even know if they still do something like that today, but somebody had to ask. You know what I mean? So that approach, even though it doesn't apply to me, it's what I'm trying to do with everything I do today. It's like, all right, everybody thinks it's the way to go is to go left. Let me try to see like what's popping on the right side of
go
things.
Against the grain.
Yeah, let me see let me see what I can do, like what I can bring to the table or whatever. And so far, it's paying off. You know, so
like Zupa said, that's a visionary for real. Visionary stand alone. They stand against the crowd.
I wouldn't say that.
You have them vision.
I wouldn't say that, but I feel like if my approach could be theorized, summarized when it's all said and done, because like the thing is like you also got to think about, all right, you've been doing this, because some people, the problem sometimes like they're feeling themselves too much. They get to a certain position and they feel satisfied about it, and then they stagnate. And once they do, what happens is like they look to the right, they look to the left, whatever, and then they kind of realize that, oh shit, I'm alone in here. So that means you're vulnerable, Machi. That means like possibly speaking, you can just like be pushed from your position at any given time. But if you bring in like as much people around you, whether it's in your field or not, it's just to have a circle of people who have either resources, means of production or whatever. How can you tangibly fall?
Leverage that too,
like you can leverage that, do certain things, bring the capital together to do like, I don't know, real estate, whatever, or expend somewhere else, since you have been doing it like for a while in Montreal. Like the possibilities are always bigger when you have people around you who are able to play the game like you play the game. Because if not, well, you know, it's a golden cage for me. You know, that's it.
And what are some of the biggest challenges that you guys experienced in your realms, like in your fashion design as an entrepreneur, you know what I mean? And you with your whole bubble of
things.
Bubble of things. Like I'll just say creation.
Creation.
You know, no, both of you guys are creators, and I really like I applaud you for everything that you guys are done and stuck to it, despite, like you said, lack of representation, despite the stumbling blocks that you may have been in your midst. But what are some of the biggest challenges that you've experienced within your fields, with your businesses, and how did you navigate that?
I would say the main things were lack of resource, my personal insecurities, and I would say just the keeping in, like initially that's what I thought I needed to do, keeping in consistent or continuation of like a certain trend or whatnot. But now that I believe I've gained some sort of confidence in what it is that I'm personally doing, that has helped me. And especially when it comes to resource, unfortunately, I feel like that's something that I'm still battling. But it's just trying to hone the people that are around me and like the support system that I have in terms of what it is that I'm looking forward to. Like I try to look forward instead of like what's going wrong or what's not happening for me. But like in this moment right now, I feel like I'm content in the space that I am. But before it was mostly that my own insecurities and the resource that I believe was very lacking. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing.
For me, I think there's a conflict between what I think I can do in the future, what the world is telling me I can do, and what I can do right now. So it's like that battle between all those different instances of my way of thinking and seeing things. But once I get past that, because I'm my worst enemy at all given time, I don't feel like a system, a person, somebody who hates me can really stop me like that. I feel like I'm the one when it comes to that. But besides that, like if I stop being in my own way, I'm pretty sure I can do whatever. That's how I look at things. But that would be my biggest challenge. Nkosi Phanord for sure.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's you versus you.
Yeah. That's like the insecurities that you're always trying to push away.
You're mentioning.
Yeah.
And it's hard because for a lot of like upcoming entrepreneurs, you know what I mean? They're thrown into this world without anybody, you know what I mean? Like
There's no
just
net.
like there's nothing, you know what I mean? And I like what you said, like it's about words, not necessarily being a black entrepreneur, and an entrepreneur just happens to be black, but overall just speaking in entrepreneurship, what is something that you could like leave with the audience, or what is something that you could say to an upcoming entrepreneur to encourage them on their journey? Maybe something that you wish someone would have said to you, some sort of advice, or, you know, to change your outlook, perspective, or anything like that.
Do you want to go first?
Okay. I would say once you get in position, the first thing you have to think about is what's going to happen to the next wave of whatever you got going on. It's not that I want to bring it up or anything, but it's like today we're doing it technically in my studio. And to me, that's very important because I feel like, okay, I have resources. I could have just easily just focused on doing like my own shows and whatnot. But I wanted to give people a voice and an affordable one too. So people can just come through, do whatever they got going on, and they don't feel like breaking the bank, whenever they have a project in mind. I think that was the mission. And yeah, shout out. So, but that's the thing. Like whatever it is for you, it's that little thinking. Like, how am I gonna give back? How am I using what I know, like cameras, techniques, and whatnot, to help people just like break the mold? That's it. As long as you keep that in mind, I don't see things not progressing from that point on. And it may never, like, who knows, like maybe it's not going to be what you think it's going to be, but you could come out of this a bigger entity right now. And just like thinking back, like, oh shit, okay, like that was an experience that helped me get to the next level and whatever, because you just never know what can change for people, like what introduction can make it work or whatever. But they'll always remember that little gesture, that little thing you did, and then we can build from there. That's how I look at it.
And they'll remember the feeling too. You know what I mean? I feel like right now with the trend that's going on in the with businesses is connecting with customers in a different way now. You know what I mean? Leaving an impact not just in your product, but in a feeling, a relationship. So with the era of social media, people get a glimpse into your life. You know, people are doing reels, people are doing videos and everything like that, and there's that connection being built also. You know what I mean? So yeah, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and it's crazy that you're saying that, because earlier he was talking about trying to create boundaries between his brand and himself, while I feel in my area, it's like I have to be in front of the camera, you know?
For sure.
And like, I'm such an introvert, and I'm like...
You've been doing a good job. I've been seeing her. Don't front. She's been doing those reels.
I've been extroverted.
But yeah, so now I'm like, once again, I'm in a place where I'm confident in what I'm doing, so it kind of comes off as less inauthentic to me. So that's why I feel like I'm more able to present myself and like get those connections going. But if I were to give an advice, it would literally to be confident in your craft and try to remember that what it is that you're doing is not only impactful to you, but it's impactful
To the world and everybody.
Exactly.
Be confident and no lowballing. Stop lowballing yourself. I feel like Black entrepreneurs do that a lot, or entrepreneurs who happen to be Black, as Nkosi said, happen to not know their worth and undercharge themselves. You know what I'm saying? And like honestly, me, I was the same thing with my art. I was so undercharging my art, but now I have a key. I like charge higher than I would normally charge, and I feel like it creates an outlet for a certain clientele also. People who really connect with it will support you nonetheless. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
And I really like what both of you gave as advice, and I'm kind of taking it in, and I'm trying to see how I can apply to myself or how I have. And like, for example, you're saying that just really have the vision, Mr. Visionary. You're saying have the vision of what's the end game, like what's gonna happen next and whatnot. And you're saying to be confident in your craft. So for example, I had that since the beginning. I'm like, I want to change the world. I want to be a change maker. And so that was clear to me. And like the sky was the limit. You know, I was like, I could do this, and then I could do that, and then I could do this, right? But when it was time to start creating and to start doing
little
things,
steps.
then the confidence was lacking, you know? And then like you were saying, 'cause you were saying like you never know what a connection can do. Like, so I meet her, and then I'm like, yo, I'm doing this podcast. Like, do you want to just come for an episode? And just because she's a bubbly person, we were working on projects together in classes, and she was super smart. I usually kind of took over the group projects before I was in a group project with her. I'm like, let me just do this because I need an A in this class. I'm gonna do everything, okay? You guys just show up, you know? And her was like, no, we're doing this together. Like, that was her vibe, you know? She's like, what do you mean? No, I'm gonna do this, you can do that, you know? And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I just gained a lot of respect for her. I invite her. We do that one podcast
one
together.
Episode, such an
and
amazing
like,
feedback.
And it's not it's not the feedback that got me. It's how I felt in the podcast.
Yeah.
I felt like, hey, I could do this. I could have her as a co-host if she was willing. It would be perfect. I would not be as nervous.
Yeah, and closed in.
Yeah, I would feel more confident because this is a person that the way we speak meshes together. It comes up
and helps you feel more confident.
And it helps me feel less nervous. You know, definitely less nervous. The confidence came as we continued to do them, but definitely less nervous. And so that's how it started. And now the vision became even bigger and bigger, and the opportunities I felt like were even more now. So I really do respect that you said that, because it rings true to me that you always have to see what's next. And for me, that's easy, but then it's the stepping stones that become a little bit harder.
And me, it's the stepping stones that I focus on, the micro stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's like, even when we're planning anything we do, it's like she'll come with this overarching theme, and then all micro.
Yes.
And that's how we work. And I believe like it, you know, it can work if you know
well.
your strength of your team and everything like that. But yeah, no, it's definitely true. And what rings even more true is the fact that not only are we doing this together, we do have our academic background, we have our own work experience, and our own side hustles, you could say, that tie into everything altogether. This was such an amazing conversation, and I'm just going to ask one more question to you both before we sign off, so that our listeners could like tune into you and also share your handles and everything like that. What is something that you're currently working on that everyone should know about, that everyone can't miss? You know what I mean? Need to be front row and centered to, that you could share with us.
So currently, I'm working on the new line that's gonna. Like I said, it's coming up in the fall. I'm currently wearing a piece of it.
Yeah, I love it already.
So, it's a sneak peek right now. So we haven't started adding and like putting promotions out there. But like, yeah, that's what I'm working on right now.
Fall collection.
Yes.
Look out for 1991's fall collection, everybody. And Nkosi.
I'm currently working on launching my creative agency. This is going to be like the hub for all my creative endeavors, whether it's original content or stuff that I'm doing for clients. And of course, like we're currently at Black Box, which is going to be like our creative outlet for everything creative and supporting like up and coming podcasters and creative in the cities as well. And I also have a documentary with the Black Film Festival that's going to air in Montreal. It's already premiered in Toronto. I think it's going to premiere in Halifax, Vancouver. But I'm really looking forward for the Montreal premiere because
He's a director too, y'all.
yeah, that was the whole point. I followed around 3 creatives that I really respect from the city. A Black woman named Joanna from Never Was Average, Nazca from Espace Gris, and then Kevin Calix. I made them speak and engage about like their beginnings up until now, which is like the final arrival and what would be the cues for the next wave. And I'm really looking forward for that, to see the reaction from the home base rather than, different market. I really want this thing to be a moment for the city as a whole.
Perfect.
Nice.
Yeah.
And for those who want to follow you, how could the audience reach you?
At Nkosi Creates Everything.
KOSI.
Creates everything. Love it.
Everything.
No, but it's not everything. Like I mean, the end
I know,
of
you see?
the,
They're like,
yeah.
Black Nkosi creates everything.
No,
I'm
but-
like,
That
no.
would
No,
be
but that's a
perfect.
good
It's
name though.
good
That's
Yeah.
actually a good name. But the name is Nkosi Creates, but I'll definitely keep that in mind.
Yeah.
For sure,
Perfect,
for sure.
yeah. And Zula?
At 1991, that's the handle on Instagram. So you can follow and yeah.
Follow, share, subscribe.
We'll have it in our caption anyways. But yeah, thank you to you both. It's
Thank
been a
you for having
pleasure having you on. If we could speak for another 3 hours, we would go
Yeah,
for
definitely.
sure. And to all our audience tuning in, we appreciate you as always. And don't forget to stay tuned for the next episode.
Thank you. See you next time.